Ginge. Ah.
In 1990, Megadeth were to release the first of two albums that really made a lot of guitarists, myself in particular, feel inadequate and sell all the gear, buy themselves metronomes, practice. In this podcast, we're going to have a look at Rust in Peace. I'm lucky enough to have a signed picture disc as well. As always, I'm joined by two special guests to discuss Rust in Peace track by track. Please like and subscribe to the page for more classic album retrospective reviews. But in the meantime, enjoy. Welcome to episode 6. I'm pleased to be joined by the two presidents of the Drummers Union, Mr. Kevin Brown and Mr. Rob Bluesy Hughes. Now, you might recognise Rob from the first Queen one, and when I asked him to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about himself, he was quite modest, really. Didn't really tell us a great deal, maybe about stuff that he's got up to in years gone by. So could you tell us something different about yourself, Rob?
Okay. In the olden days, way back then in black and white, I was in a kick-ass rock band called Psychedelic Gods of Rock. It was a cross between like Motorhead, Caius, that kind of thing. You know, and we did all right. We didn't have a record deal or anything like that, but it was just the digital age was coming out, and we did all right with a single. And we did some TV work, on Big Brother and things like that, and did some radio work. So yeah, I've done that kind of thing and gigged in front of big audiences, just like yourselves, you know. What other stuff have I done? I've done pretty much everything that you can ever do, but I've not got paid for it. You know, that's the only thing. If I can get some money out of it, I'll be all right.
All right then, Kev, tell us a bit about yourself, dude.
I'm the current resident tub thumper for a few bands that you might have heard of. Black Zeppelin.
Are you sure about that?
Well, I'd have to think about it for a second. But I wasn't sure if you'd sacked me yet or not.
Not yet.
But yeah, as of today, I'm still the drummer of Black Zeppelin, as well as Bandoliers, and for one gig only, I was the drummer for Viper Kings.
We've done two, haven't we? We've done two.
Oh yeah, shit. Sorry for that one.
Yeah, we have done two. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's go straight into Megadeth Rust in Peace. I want to talk about the actual album cover first off.
Yeah, as it happens. Got it right here.
Oh.
Classic. Now, this is not a first press because I got it on CD originally when it first came out. Bear in mind, it was 1990. I just left school, so I was kind of that demographic of age to kind of be interested in this kind of stuff anyway, being a Metallica fan. So the artwork is one thing that kind of not just attracted me to it, but it kind of lent itself to the musical image as well, you know, which was cool, and everything that he was singing about. So obviously we got Vic Rattlehead right there. He's the mascot of these guys, just like Iron Maiden has Eddie and all that malarkey. So back in the day, 1990 and much of the 80s, we was kind of growing up in a fear of Russia and nuclear war and the Cold War and all that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of media frenzy and a lot of movies out there all about nuclear how to survive a nuclear blast and all that kind of stuff. Little leaflets posted through your doors just in case the Russians strike. So it's quite a big topic of the day. And basically the world leaders of the time were all here, sat around this little weapon of mass destruction. This is basically, before I tell you about these guys, this is Hangar 18. This is where the song is about. Well, we'll get to that later on. But we got Mikhail Gorbachev. I don't know if you can see this. Mikhail Gorbachev there. You see that? And
still in the shrink wrap, that pal.
Yeah.
Oh no! What are you doing?
Yeah, I've opened it though.
Right, okay. Yellow vinyl.
I like keeping hold of the old little pipe stickers, you know.
Yeah.
So we've got Mikhail Gorbachev, and we got Bush Senior, and some say that this guy is John Major, but it's not. It's some other guy. I can't remember his name of him. We've got the president of West Germany, I think, and Japan. So the big leaders at the time are all here. So it shows you what kind of an important event is taking place, which is part of the Majestic 12 and all the other kind of conspiracy theories based around the Roswell incident of 1947, which is kind of the theme of this whole record. Is like conspiracies in a way, I suppose. You know?
Yeah. Well, Kev loves a conspiracy, don't you, Kev?
I enjoy reading them.
Well, who's your favourite tyrannical world leader on that? Is he on the album cover?
Well, I've got my own version here, but I've got the old picture disc.
Ah.
Mike, you'll be able to tell more about this because I bought it from your shop.
Yes.
Oh, have you seen the side 2 though? That's yellow on the back.
Wasn't that on the back of the CD version? I think originally.
I think
Yeah,
so.
it is.
Yeah.
You know, David Ellison, right there. I don't know if you can see. It looks quite a little bit like that Owen Wilson actor. You know, the big nose of the adverts. Yeah, I kind of quite like it actually.
Yeah, whereas Marty Friedman just looks like a giant poodle or something.
Let me just have a see. Right there.
Yeah, I'd chop a leg off to be able to play like him.
Yeah, he nearly lost an arm. Actually, it's funny you should say that.
Really?
And I think it was an accident, bus or a chainsaw accident.
That's the way to do it.
They kind of like sewed his arm back on and he survived and everything. It was all right, but apparently he sold the bloody blade for charity to a fan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Drummers fire. Well, guitarists. I mean.
Well, I mean, who better to have on a majorly classic guitar album than two drummers? I can't think of anybody better. Because drummers love guitarists, really.
Yeah, it's perfect. I mean, there's only like 147,000 guitar solos on this album.
Yes.
That's
and we're gonna come to them all.
Oh, sure, yeah.
All right. Well, let's kick off with side 1, track 1, and it is Holy War brackets the punishment due close brackets.
It's a classic opener, isn't it? I mean, there's no foreplay, just straight in there. I mean, it's the fast tempo, really fast tempo, but it sets the tone for the whole album pretty much.
It's there's so many sections in this, and I actually heard the demo version of this. Have you heard the demo version of it, Kev?
I've only heard the 8-bit demo version.
Oh yeah. Well, there's like a really cheesy keyboard solo in the demo version of it.
Punk edge to it, they were very punky. Megadeth. I think that's why I prefer them over Metallica, to be honest. As much as I love Justice for All, you know, it's a great album. A lot of people criticised the sound. I liked it because it was different. But this had more of a punky, angrier edge, I thought, you know, to Metallica, and that's what attracted me to them. So it's kind of a brutal kick, if you will, in the balls.
Yeah.
To start off with, and the subject matter was kind of triggered by when they toured Northern Ireland in the late 80s. You know, they were kind of like, right, why is bootleggers selling our t-shirts outside? And so, well, you better let them carry on there, dude, because they're fighting for the cause. You know, they're religious conflict at the time. So Dave Mustaine liked the idea of the cause. So he said, yeah, I'll go on then. Just sell them. And he kind of like dedicated a version of Anarchy to the UK, to the people. And they went nuts, rioted, and it worked. It's the kind of energy that's come back to become a song.
It kind of worked. I bet it kind of didn't, though, in some people's eyes.
Yeah. The kind of energy he put into it to get that reaction, he got back out of it to make the song, and I think that's why it sounds incredible, because of that energy.
Apparently, like he said over the microphone before he played, he said, "Give Ireland back to the Irish."
That's the one.
I can't see security going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, what he said that for?"
Yeah, they had to get escorted off the premises.
Yeah. Bulletproof bus.
Bulletproof bus at all. Imagine that.
It's quite funny because we had a similar reaction, me and Kev, when we started to play a Sex Pistols song in Lee. Do you remember that?
Yeah, but that was in the sound check.
It was. So yeah, playing at Anarchy in the UK in Northern Ireland is a little bit like playing Pretty Vacant at the Musketeer in Lee. If you ever get a gig there, do not play that song.
I've found that out myself.
Yeah. If you don't know what Lee is, it's the biggest town in the northwest without a train station, I believe. Right. And nothing much more.
Now, the best thing to come out of Lee, though, it's the A580.
There you go. Yeah, the long and winding road. All right, well let's move on to track 2, and we kind of touched on it a little bit before. Kev, do you want to start us off on Hangar 18? There's probably more to talk about this track than perhaps any other on the album, I would say.
Yeah, well, lyrically, I suppose so. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it references back to the album cover with the alien conspiracy and all that kind of blah. But I mean, to me, I wrote down it's probably one of the most radio friendly track on the album in terms of being melodic and rock radio friendly, should I say? Because it's kind of mid tempo for Megadeth anyway, and but it's to say it's like a lyrically deep song. There's not actually that many lyrics in it. There's guitar solos like for 3/4 of the song, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there's dueling guitars near the end as well. I mean, there's like guitar harmonics all the way through, which sound great.
Well, were you being a Metallica fan, Kev? Well, you both are, I think. But I've read that it is actually the intro part is actually taken from a Metallica song that he wrote called "Call of Cthulhu" or something.
Yes. Now you've said that.
Yeah. He's got a writing credit on that.
Yeah.
D minor chord, that one that he's playing right now on the Hangar 18.
Yeah.
And you keep that shape, but you move your fingers and then you move up a little bit.
D minor, the saddest of all chords.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Especially if you're playing "Lick My Love Pump" by Spinal Tap.
Only if you put it up to 11.
Well, funnily enough, I do actually have this on a single. It's quite interesting. It's like I suppose it's a picture disc, but if I get it out, how cool is that?
Ah, shit, that
was very cool. I remember seeing that, yeah, back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, and the B-side is, I don't know if you can see that on there. The B-side is The Conjuring, live from Wembley, 1990. I think it's from Peace Cells, isn't it? Peace Cells, but who's buying?
Yeah, I think so. The second album.
So I'm not really as familiar with those albums because the brutal, great sounding albums, but for me, they're kind of stuck in that 80s sound.
They are. Yeah, I watched the Dave Mustaine interview, and it said for this album we felt like we'd grown into men and we'd grown mustaches.
Yeah, it's leagues apart. You can tell it's like they've come of age, isn't it? You know.
They were sober as well for the first time.
Well, that helps.
Just kick the smack finally.
I believe there's a sequel to Hangar 18 as well. Kev, do you know about the sequel?
Yeah, on World Needs a Hero, I think. Where, well, lyrically, the alien escapes and kills everybody in Area 51. Return to Hangar, I think it's called.
Let's talk about the guitar solos then.
As far as describing the solos is concerned, obviously being a drummer, I don't know too much about how you would do it, but I mean, I know each one of them takes a solo, and it's kind of like a call and response kind of thing. Apparently, there's 11 solos in total in that song. And normally, being a drummer, you know, we hate guitar solos. Well, I know I do. Because they're a bit gratuitous in a lot of ways, you know. I think it's years of just playing Freebird in pubs when I was younger and all that, and Sweet Home Alabama. They are great songs, don't get me wrong, but they kill you, don't they? They take a bit of your soul each time you play them.
Freebird's a song, I'll give you that.
It is fantastic, but because you've been exposed to it so many times, you know, it's difficult to enjoy it again, you know. So I kind of listen to songs for songs. That's why I'm more of a punk side of metal, because it's all like 1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. That's it. You know, so I don't really get turned on by guitar solos, but when you listen to Hangar 18, they're fantastic. They're very descriptive of what the song is about as well. You know, those high bends that I don't know which one is playing it. Marty Friedman probably. They sound like aliens talking. Do you get what I mean? It's kind of using the sound to mimic that kind of thing, so it becomes more descriptive. You know, and I dig that, because it's not just a case of when they write the music. Here you go, lads. I've wrote some music. There you go. Let's jam it. Get it into the studio. Knock it off. Let's go and shoot up some heroin. You know, it's thought through totally from every single note. And I know Dave Mustaine is a stickler for that. You know, I've read his autobiography many moons ago, and he's like, when he's auditioning, even when he was like 16 for his own bands, he wasn't letting anybody in with any equipment. They had to have the top dog equipment. They had to have all the specific things to make you a great guitarist. If you were a great guitarist, you could be the best guitarist in the world, but if you don't care about your gear, you didn't want to know. So he's very much like Frank Zappa in that sense, very, very in control of what he wants, his vision, you know. So it's nice to see that amount of control and in a creative place. See what I mean? Yeah, because they're not just gratuitous solos like just wanking off. It's in context, and that's what I like about it.
For a guitarist in a thrash metal band, like you say, his solos are very, very musical. He uses a lot of really bizarre Japanese scales and oh, fucking hell.
I believe that's one.
Excuse
Which
me.
scale was that?
I'm going to keep that one in.
The Gesundheit scale.
Yeah. Yeah, he uses a lot of really obscure Eastern scales and Japanese scales and stuff like that. It's very unique. I can't think of a guitarist in another thrash metal band who can even touch Marty Friedman. Do you think of anybody?
I mean, he applied for Megadeth before, and Mustaine didn't even listen to his CD because he looked like a tit on the front. Apparently, he had like dyed orange hair, and like Mustaine, like, I'm not playing that.
Yeah,
and eventually he got talked into doing it by his manager or something, and blew his mind. Like, get him in.
People with orange hair should not be allowed to be playing guitar solos right at the front.
Nope, absolutely not. Well, there's only room for one ginger in Megadeth.
Correct. Let's move on to track number 3, which is Take No Prisoners, which is actually one of my favourite songs on the album.
Yeah, I love it. Basically, it's so rhythmic. You know, it's that I was saying before about all the drum parts follow the guitar parts really intricately and spot on, like a machine, like a sewing machine. You know, it's very industrial sounding. You know, it's odd. I know it's an anti-war song. You know, which obviously is as punk as it gets. So that's quite cool. And I think it's just one of those catchier numbers. I think, you know, that's what
Yeah.
I find as catchy because it's full of rhythm. His playing is very rhythmic, and that's the thing. A lot of music's made from the drums up. You know, it's layered up that way, and obviously with Dave Mustaine doing the writing, he's a guitarist. He's seeing it from a guitarist's point of view. So the drums are kind of like not being the drums as they should be. They're being what the guitarist wants it to be, and it gives it a different kind of texture, I think.
Yeah, it does. Because maybe sometimes I know Dream Theater have done that a few times, where actually the guitarist writes the drum parts, he programs them in. I don't know whether I like that or not, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But like you say, it definitely does come from a different angle,
Mm.
a different perspective. Maybe you could think of things that the drummer wouldn't think of, and vice versa. I think a drummer should be writing the drum parts. Really, what do you think, Kev?
Well, it's more of a jazz way of doing it, I think. And Nick Menza was a jazz drummer.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. He had a jazz background. He was the previous drummer's drum tech. That's how he ended up getting the gig.
Ah,
And,
so I guess he's used to playing pre-arranged parts then.
Well, yeah, it does what he's told basically. But yeah, that's the jazz way of doing it. Like, you know, all like Charlie Parker and Miles Davis and all, they all told what the drummers to do, and they just followed the sheet music or whatever. So
Yeah.
I mean, even on the intro to this, the snare ride cymbal bit at the intro, it just sounds like jazz if you listen to it on its own in isolation. That could be any jazz track.
Yeah.
That's just like a jazz intro, and then
So
it just goes into vicious punk rap just straight after it, pretty much.
Yeah, so this was his first album, wasn't it, with Megadeth?
Yeah.
It's what people will say. It's like the classic Megadeth lineup. They made this. They made the next one, Countdown to Extinction, as well.
Yeah.
And this was like the peak of Megadeth, I think.
It is, but I mean, yeah, I can imagine Marty Friedman. He's one of those guitarists where what he does really fucking well. But I would imagine a little bit like Malmsteen.
Right.
A lot of his solos, he harks back to the same scales. I would imagine Mustaine probably, because he doesn't name him in his favourite Megadeth guitarist list.
Really?
Actually, yeah, he's second. And I think he cites the reason for that being that some of the other players could just play anything, whereas Friedman was very much, it's him straight away, don't you? Same scales and solos in every song. But I mean, there's some amazing guitar solos on the album. What's your favourite track of the album, Kev? Would you say?
It changes depending on what, every time I listen to it, pretty much. I mean, I listened to it today on the car on the way home from work, and Lucretia was my favourite.
Yeah.
It's pure Sabbath, pretty much.
It is. Yeah. Rob, what's your favourite?
Again, it's the same as Kev. It changes. You know, when you get the earworms, you know, it usually lasts for a certain amount of time, and then it goes away when you play it, and then you get another earworm, and then so it changes for me. But I think at the moment, from listening to it again recently, obviously Dawn Patrol was much more interesting than the rest of the songs because it's stark, you know, and that's another texture to the album, you know.
Yeah.
But then there's the track that follows it, which seems the right song to follow it. Rust in Peace itself.
Yeah.
Very last that Polaris.
Yeah.
You know? It's the intro. Every time I'm at someone's studio or whatever, and they say, "Do you want to go on my drums?" I'll say, "Yeah," and it's a double bass drum kit. That is the intro to this song is the first thing that I would instinctively play.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why. It's just it rolls. It's brilliant. You know.
Uses everything
So
as well.
yeah, it's just fantastic. You know, the playing in that is just phenomenal.
Yeah, Nick Menza. Where did he come from before then, Kev? Did you say he was the previous drummer's drum tech?
Yeah, Chuck Wheeler. He played on the one after Peace Cells. Was it So Far So Good So What? I think it was called.
Yeah.
He replaced the guy who did the first two albums, and then he got into the smack and got fired. and he hired his drum tech instead. Well, I read in an article before that Mustaine tried to get Darrell Abbott to join before he got there.
Yeah.
And Darrell would only join if he could bring Vinnie Paul with him, but he'd already given Nick Menza the job, so that never happened. That was before Pantera's first album came.
Well, if that hadn't have happened, Pantera would have never have been.
So it's sliding doors, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very, very, very much so. Very much so. Let's talk about the bass tapping part. I can, but there's not many songs that has a bass tapping part in. Do you think tapping has a place on bass or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it in this song.
Do you?
It's almost like palm muting. Sounds like a palm muted guitar a little bit.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I think he's doing 4-finger tapping. Like with two hands. I think the only other song that I can think of with bass tapping in is, again, I know Dream Theater have done it, but I'm not so keen on it, to be honest with you. I'm not so keen on that. I think a bass should be a bass, you know what I mean?
I think
I think it's good that you can kind of do different things to it and it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. Like, that's not what you would expect. Like you say, you wouldn't expect tapping on a bass, you know, to hear that. You know, just like I guess you wouldn't expect some funky bassist to do the thumb slapping on a guitar. But
true, yeah.
People do that and they get really, you know, obscure results out of that. That sound really unique and interesting. So in its place, I think it's cool. And in this instance, I think it's in its place. Sure.
Yeah, it's not all the way through. It's just a little quick
just a couple of bars, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just one bar.
Can you imagine if Mike started doing a tapping bass solo? at our gigs?
Well, he's got the one there in an IB, but he never uses it, does he?
Well, no, never.
Yeah, I like it in this song though. It just catches you by surprise, doesn't it? Like, what the fuck was that? And then it's gone already.
It's
so fast.
I think I was only very young when I heard this album for the first time, and I didn't even know it was bass until years later, kind of thing.
Yeah.
All right, well let's go to the last track on side one, which is Five Magics.
Yeah, it's just Dave Ellefson again, isn't it? Dave Ellefson leads it off, and he's a really underrated bassist, I think.
I agree.
He's he's written so many iconic bass licks, and really the thrash metal band, trying not to call them a thrash metal band, but they get lumped in with thrash metal. But bass players really get a chance to shine in a metal band. But Dave Ellefson does quite a lot, and especially in this song, none more so.
I love the sound. You can hear. I'm not sure whether he plays with fingers or not, but to me, on the intro to Five Magics, it sounds like he is using his fingers. You can kind of hear the slapping against the bass. Yeah. I think all bass players should use their fingers, but there you go.
Yeah, yeah. I think he does play with his fingers. I watched last year. I watched Dave Ellefson teaching you some of his iconic bass lines.
I've seen that. Yeah,
and that's what made me think he was such an underrated player, because you don't really think, like you said, Kev, he's just in a great band and he's doing his bit and it's great. You don't realise what he's actually doing under there, that foundation that he's got, until you strip it all away and he says, "This is how I play it." It's like, what the fuck? How'd you do that? And he's so solid, precise, straightforward, proper musician.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, it's
stand up for the rhythm section.
It's like stealth bass, isn't it? It's
like
when you hear it in isolation, you're like, fuck, and it really driving sound as well. Yeah. And I think in a lot of cases, a bass player is quite important in a thrash metal band, because let's face it, they are going to get lumped into thrash metal, whether they are or whether they're not. I mean, the suck in metal bands, they tend to scoop a lot of the mids out. And it, to me, can sometimes sound like a wasp in a pint glass. But this album is different. The guitar tones on this are different. But just generally speaking, I think the bass player is all important in a thrash metal band, even though they always get overlooked. Always.
Especially when you got twin guitar solos going on as well.
Yeah.
The bass player needs to hold all the music down when that's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, just all the bollocks just drops out.
Exactly. Yeah. There was some Tom, Dick, and Harry doing it.
Again, it's just one of the coolest songs. it's difficult because even though they're very different songs in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of textures on this album, it kind of like it's like a Queen album in a way, in a more brutal way. We talked about that in the last podcast that we did together. There's lots of different styles and types of music on the record, but it sounds like it all should be together. That's the same with this. There's a lot of similar styles all grouped together, and then there's other different things as well to give it texture. Like we talked about earlier on, Dawn Patrol being stripped down and sparse, and things starting with pinched harmonics and stabs, and it's all awesome as far as I'm concerned. I think, even though we're breaking this whole thing down track by track, to me this is a whole experience. There's not one shite song on it. Okay, yeah, you got to turn it over. So it's like two parts, if you will. But if you're listening to it on a CD straight through, it's like there's like, what is the 9 songs on this album? It's like 9 movements of a metal symphony,
Symphony of Destruction, if you will.
yeah, which is also cool stuff too.
Do you know what this track is actually about?
Which one? 5 Magics. I think he based it on a book, didn't he?
He did.
I'm not quite sure.
Master of the 5 Magics. Yeah, have you heard of it, Kev?
No, it's new one on me.
Yeah, I was just doing some research on it before, and it's a book from the 80s by Lyndon Hardy, and it's called Master of the 5 Magics. And basically, the story is that there is a suitor to the Queen, and he's kind of a peasant, really, and to be considered to kind of marry the Queen, he needs to master magic. And there's 5 different disciplines of magic that he needs to master. So you've got alchemy, sorcery, wizardry, electricity, and I can't really pronounce this last one, thaumaturgy, which is basically miracle making, like our prophet would make a miracle happen. So it's in my Audible list. I want to read it. It's a trilogy. It's a trilogy of books. Yeah.
Sounds interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah. And he basically has to master all these different disciplines of magic to be considered worthy for the hand of the Queen, like so. Ooh. Sounds like a great read, so I'm definitely going to check that out. It's Master of the 5 Magics by Lyndon Hardy. I believe that's the name of the first book.
Right. Might check that one out myself.
I'll get on that.
Yeah, definitely. I know you love it. You love a book or two, Kev.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, let's flip over to side 2. The first track is "Poison Was the Cure." Now, I mean, there's so many different guitar solos on this album. I actually think this has the best guitar solo in from a player's point of view, or should I say, it's my favourite solo on the album. I think just as a whole, the whole of the solo is amazing. Whereas I think the best part on the album is the guitar solo in Tornado of Souls. You know, the bits. I love that bit. That's the cherry on the album for me. But the guitar solo in Poison Was the Cure is my favourite solo on the album.
Yeah, well, lyrically, it seems to me it sounds like he's writing about heroin addiction. He mentions serpent in the blood, venom in my veins.
Yeah,
it sounds like heroin addiction to me. And but this is the one song that you can say is pure thrash metal.
Yeah,
like the tempo, the double bass, pretty much all the way through. It's like it's about 3 minutes long, something like that. So it's this like punk rock attitude to it. But it's just a thrash song. It sticks out in the album a little bit like that because there's doesn't add any tempo changes or anything like that. It's just to smash it out all the way through. Pure thrash.
I would imagine it was a struggle for Friedman because I don't think he is a stereotypical thrash chord player like Mustaine is. So I would imagine he struggled quite a bit with that because the drift that I get from this album is Mustaine's wrote it and Friedman's come in and just done some amazing solos on it. I don't think Friedman will have necessarily wrote many of the riffs. I think it's all Mustaine, to be honest with you.
I think that's true for the majority of Megadeth albums, I think.
Yeah. Otherwise, you get some bizarre Japanese manga riffs going on, wouldn't you?
Bit of anime theme tunes, like Power Ranger style going on.
Yeah, there's some mega guitar in that though.
Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, all that crap. I read that Mike Clink, who was the producer on this album, was also doing, I mean, he'd done Appetite for Destruction, but he was also in the process of doing Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 as well with Guns N' Roses in the same studio as what Megadeth were in. And I've read an interview with Friedman that he basically says he didn't produce the album. He's credited as doing. He was too busy caring about Guns N' Roses. So pretty much the guy who mixed the album and Marty Friedman produced the album. But I read that Friedman was struggling with the outro guitar part on this, and the producer Mike Clink had one of Slash's guitar plex lying around, and he said, "Yeah, try it with this," and he got it first take. But I could imagine that really pissed the band off, that the producer was kind of, his head wasn't in it. He was too busy counting the money from Guns N' Roses Appetite, and
what I'd read was that he was Guns N' Roses weren't ready to start recording yet, so he agreed to do Megadeth. But he said to him going in, "Well, if Axl rings me, I'm going."
Yeah.
So he was there for all the recording parts, but he didn't do any of the mixing or mastering or anything like that. He was present for recording, and then he buggered off, went to do Use Your Illusion as soon as he got the phone call from Axl, and they just finished it off without him. But he's still credited on the album though.
Yeah, he is, isn't he? Rob, Megadeth or Guns N' Roses?
Absolutely Megadeth.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I must admit, no matter who your producer is, right, whether it's a small name or you're a small band or a big name with a big band, you want that focus and attention, don't you, from what you're paying them for? Because at the end of the day, you've been given a bunch of money from your record company to go out and hire someone who's worth a lot of money for his fee. Obviously, you've hired the right person, so you want that. The reason why you've hired them is because you want that thing they do, and if their heads are not in that creative space where the band is, it isn't going to be that thing that it should be. But saying that, I guess it opened up a different avenue there.
Yeah.
Because producers are not just the guys who, because a lot of people think they're just the guys that say, yes, more treble, turn up the bass. They're in charge of phoning up the alto sax people, and getting orchestras together and the finances, the budget, the technical parts of it, as well as the creative side of it too. So a lot of producers really like to kind of get themselves involved in the creative process. So they also get credited, which means if they're credited, they generate a royalty. So not only do they get paid for producing, because they're on the song credits as well, they get a royalty every time. So they like to do that. So the record was probably going to be going in the producer's favor if they were doing that kind of thing anyway. So this opens up Megadeth's vision to be just Megadeth's vision and no kind of, I think you should do it this way, you should do it that way, no, try this, try that. Nah, what Megadeth is saying, Megadeth are doing, and that's very apparent on this record. Because I think there's a lot of risks on this album that I've never heard on any other album before,
Yeah.
And I've heard some risky kind of music, I'm a big Frank Zappa fan and he pushed boundaries, but yeah, on that, that's what I like about self-produced things. It's the vision.
Kev, I mean, it's because you've been in originals bands before, haven't you, Kev?
Not for a long time, but once upon a time I was.
Yeah, I mean, did you ever do any recording?
Yeah. With John Kettle at Giraffe House a couple of times.
That's right, yeah.
In a band for long.
Did John Kettle try and stick his nose in and make suggestions as a producer would, or did he leave you to it?
Yeah. I mean, what he'd say was, well, I'm the first pair of ears that are hearing these songs. So, like, basically, when you're a band, you're writing songs and stuff. The only people that you're playing it to are each other, and you're playing it to each other constantly, trying to perfect it, get it right. And then a fresh pair of ears can come in and suggest something that nobody else might have thought of. So a producer can play a big part in the creative process as well.
It can, and that's off to John. I think he's very good at what he does. But I know myself, if I'd written a song, I wouldn't take kindly to a producer sticking his nose in. To be honest, that's just my take on it, really. I guess Dave Mustaine feels the same as well. I would imagine he did.
Oh yeah, he 100% does.
Yeah. So
I'm going to tell Dave Mustaine how to play a guitar. Try the skill, Dave. Fuck off.
Exactly. Right, let's look at the next track, which is Lucretia. Rob, do you want to start us off with this? I know you mentioned it's one of your favourites before.
I love stabs, you know, in music,
Yeah.
cymbal chokes. I love that shit, you know, and also the space between them because it's like full of anticipation, you know, and
Yeah.
as it basically starts off with stabs with this really cool little arpeggiated lick that I presume is Dave playing that. It's just so nice. It sets up the tone for it being kind of like spooky and on edge. And it was only through researching for this podcast today that it all makes sense now why it sounds the way it sounds, because it's based on he thought he had a ghost in his house at one point and he called it Lucretia. So
right.
that's kind of like, okay, now I get why they've chose that musical kind of phrase there, and the suspense of that intro, you know, that's why he's got a little cheeky laugh at the beginning as well.
Do you think that cheeky laugh is Vic Rattlehead? Do you think it's supposed to be Vic or?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think looking at it now, I'm presuming that's Lucretia.
Lucretia,
yeah. You don't know, do you? Sometimes they have a world, don't they, that they weave.
Yeah.
You know,
sounds like a witch's cackle to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
That's what I think. Yeah, it's probably the slowest song on the album, but the whole thing just reminds me of Sabbath. The way the power chord chugging, like that's all very, very Tony Iommi riffs to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the slower riffs are always the heavier riffs, without
always,
shadow of doubt.
That's where the groove is.
Yeah, exactly. I've got here. It's funny you mentioned that about the ghost, Rob, because I've got here. Lucretia comes from a Roman legend, and it's a maiden who was called Lucretia who was raped by the king of Rome. But I've also got, I found a few different meanings for it. I've also got that it means prophet in Latin, a prophet as in monetary profit. But yeah, so it's about ghosts, and interesting. Yeah, it makes sense to me that now. Now you mention it.
That's what I mean. When I saw that on the internet earlier, I'm like, it does make sense now. The way that the musical arrangement is ghostly in a way, you know.
Like I say, it was my favourite driving home from work today.
Was it?
Yeah. We must be in tune because it's definitely in my ears right now. Can't get shut of it.
All right, well, let's move on to the next track. My favourite track on the album. It's not got my favourite solo in, but it's got my favourite part of a solo in it. And it is, of course, Tornado of Souls. Kev, Tornado of Souls. Talk to me. Talk to me.
It's your amp switch on test, isn't it, this one?
Yes, it is.
The harmonics, the harmonic kickoff.
Yeah. The riff, the opening riff is so unique. I don't think you get riffs. There's not many riffs that I can think of that have harmonics in. Usually harmonics are used for, embellishing in the background. You'll hit a harmonic and then he'll hit a whammy bar. They're more atmospheric, but he uses the harmonics within a riff. I love that.
I've heard that before. Let me try and think who did it. I was in a psychedelic Gods of Rock that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of songs that was bass round. You know, them harmonics.
Yeah.
I think our singer who was the main guy of the band, he got his influence to write that from it's either the Almighty or it was the Wild Hearts. I think it might have been the Wild Hearts, actually, thinking about it.
Yeah.
They did an album called Earth versus the Wild Hearts. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, they're a band I've heard mention a lot. I've never checked them out.
You'd love them. It'd be like me and Clutch. Always kind of knew of Clutch, but then about 3 years ago, just got on them. I'm like, where have I been? You know what I mean? Where have I been? It happens sometimes, and I think that'd be a band for you. That you'd love the Wild Hearts.
Every podcast I do, I get another big list of homework. I've got so many things that I need to check out now that the people have suggested.
You was complaining you was bored before, Mike. So you got something to do now.
Yeah, I think though when you're bored and you've got more time on your hands, you don't actually do stuff.
I know.
That's what I've found.
Procrastination, I love it.
It's the thief of time. Yeah.
This came out in 1990. I was like 16. I think I got it for my 17th birthday. No, 17 at Christmas. I got it on a CD off a girlfriend at the time, and it was like, wow, it's incredible, because I used to listen to Megadeth occasionally,
Yeah.
but again, I was put off with that 80s snare sound. That the music was supposed to be really, really brutal, but then they shower it in shitloads of studio reverb. It softened the brutality of it, you know. And I think it was only a few years later, 2004, the remasters. I don't know if you've heard any of those.
Yeah.
I actually quite like them better, because they give them a modern take. Anthrax did a similar thing on the 30th anniversary of the Spreading the Disease album. They just basically released the album without any of the 80s effects on it, and just released it as if they'd recorded it live in the studio or something. And it sounds incredible. Play it with the original, it's trapped in time, you know, and that's the thing. And that's why I never kind of dipped my toe in that kind of Megadeth. I knew of them, but when this album came out in 1990, blew my mind.
Well,
Totally
it's funny.
blew my mind.
It's funny you should talk about drowning the songs in reverb, because this was another track that I heard the demo version of. The vocals, there's so much reverb on them, you can't even make out what he's saying. And he has got a scratchy vocal anyway. I mean, Kev, would you say, because as you'll know, I'm a massive Rush fan, but all I get from people who don't like Rush is, oh, Geddy Lee's, his voice is really kind of great. Would you say the same thing applies to Megadeth? Because his voice is definitely an acquired taste, I would say.
Yeah, it's not his strongest suit singing, I don't think. He's a guitarist who sings as opposed to a singer who plays guitar.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if he's a reluctant vocalist or not. If he just wants to sing because nobody else will do it, or he won't trust anybody else to sing his own lyrics, or I don't know. But it won't put me off, because I don't listen to Megadeth for the vocals, to be honest. Anyway.
No.
You think if you listen to Megadeth for the vocals, then you're doing it wrong.
you are, but I tell you what does really do my head in: Sweating Bullets off Countdown to Extinction. I hate his accent on that.
Oh, I love it.
Do you? Really great on me that, you know. Even though it's my favourite Megadeth album, his vocals on that track.
I like it because it's character. I can't even say it. Characterizing, isn't he? You know, himself and his brain. So I know what you mean, and I totally get where you come from, because it is an acquired taste. It's like a snarl, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of spitting and aggressive, and you know, I don't think, because it's punk rock, isn't it? You know, but fast.
Yeah. I guess it is. Yeah.
And that is basically Sid Vicious and you know, all those people out of the Sex Pistols. They weren't very talented players, but when you put them together with a message, it kicks ass.
Yeah.
You know, John Lydon was not the greatest singer, but you know, Johnny Rotten, character, fantastic.
Yeah. You're right. But I think the vocals could put a lot of people off Megadeth, and they're fools.
Probably, I agree.
The fools.
Yeah.
Like I said before, 3/4 of the song is guitar solos anyway. He doesn't sing that much.
Yeah.
Okay, now you two guys are probably not going to like this, and on these podcasts, just because I'm doing these albums doesn't mean that I love every song on the album. And on a lot of them, there's a skipper for me, and this one is a skipper for me, and it's Dawn Patrol. I skipped this one, but I know you guys probably will like this one.
Yeah, I know Rob likes it.
I love it. I love his bass sound.
Yeah.
Bass sound. I think he's using Trace Elliott, isn't he?
I would imagine so.
Yeah, and I think he's got his obvious ESP thing bass there going, but the amount of compression and fuzz that's on that bass, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
I absolutely love his tone, that metallic kind of scratchy sound that he has, you know. I love it, and the way that he plays it as well, it's steady with the drums. And there's only there's only 2 times the guitar's in that, it's just bass and drums.
Yeah.
Because so there's just a chord at the end to let it ring out of a guitar, and I think first time round, before it starts the second time round, there's just a guitar sustain and a chord there, just an E chord.
One thing one thing I'll give it is it's a breather in it. Tornado of Souls, you've just absolutely had your ass kicked.
Yeah.
You put all your guitars on eBay. You've given up playing guitar, and then you've got a nice little break. You know, with no guitar solos in. But yeah, it is a skipper for me, Kev. Is it a skipper for you or not?
It's not a skipper. I mean, it sticks out like a sore thumb compared to the rest of the album. Mainly just because it's having the guitars on it, and the drums sound really big and fat as well compared to the rest of the album. They sound really tight in the rest of the album. What this one, they probably crank the reverb up to 10. He sounds a bit like Marilyn Manson when he does the vocals, though. He tries to go really low and deep and like growls all his lyrics through. But you can barely tell it's Mustaine. It sounds like somebody else is doing it almost.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I mean, what's the song about?
It's called Environmental Disaster, I think.
Yeah. Just what had happened after an apocalypse has happened, you know, the nukes of the on the front cover here. This is kind of like the after effect of what that would be like.
So what you're saying, Rob, in an apocalypse, only bass players and drummers are going to survive.
And cockroaches. So what a great band we'd be.
Awesome.
It is written.
It is, yeah.
I can understand why people would skip that, and Kev just said it sticks out like a sore thumb, and I think that was its intention, because as we talked about previously about having different textures, you know, if you've got all your brutal songs, there's 5 of them all in a row. After like maybe halfway through the third one, it stops becoming brutal because you've got sensitive to it. You know, you understand it, and you know it's not as brutal. Doesn't kick you in the balls anymore. So I think, like you said, you've got like Tornado of Souls. That's just basically just give you a good kick in, you know. And if like Polaris came straight on after it, it'd be like, okay, we're carrying on with the brutality. It's not as good. It's not as effective. It's with us coming down in tone and you know, feel and everything, slowed it right down. It's kind of brought that tension back up again. So when it comes in with the big drums at the beginning of Rust in Peace Polaris, you know, you're being brutalized again, you know, for the whole song.
Yeah, I think it's like we said on the Queen one, it is an album you've got to listen to in its entirety, really, rather than dipping in and out. And yeah, you might have just changed my mind on that to not skip it next time because it's a little bit of a breather.
Yeah, because it breathes, like you say, slows you down to get you prepared for another ass kicking.
I don't want to open up a can of worms here, but in this kind of modern era when you've got Spotify and YouTube, it's almost like if you type an album in, it's been devalued really because you can just select any track you want and play it. A lot of people don't listen to albums anymore, and it's a travesty, really.
I agree. A lot of my favourite albums are albums that you need to sit down and listen to, like Alice Cooper. You know, a lot of their albums, the band Alice Cooper, are all concepts. You know, even the covers and artwork reflect that as well. And big fan of things like War of the Worlds. You know, you have to sit down with the artwork. The album, it's big enough to hold. With a CD, it got less personal. But you wanted to have better quality sound, so you replaced your vinyl with your CD, you know, with CDs, and then became the MP3 thing. And I hate MP3s. I really do hate them because they're not good quality at all. And I don't know whether you can hear it or not, and I can certainly tell the difference.
Oh, it's just convenience, isn't it? But
nice.
It is devalued.
Yeah,
but it is
a lot of people do not know how to listen to music because I used to work in a supermarket and I'd see people on with their iPods and I'd say, what are you listening to there, mate? I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? You put it on there. Oh, it's on shuffle. Oh, right, okay, whatever. And I found a lot of people being like that. So the art form of the album has been probably disappearing for about 20 years, you know, not even slowly. I think it's 15 years definitely been dead, the album, for sure. Singles, you know, and I think if Megadeth came out with this album today, I don't know, even though it's awesome, would it fit in with today's world? You know, absolutely with the subject matter going on for sure. But I mean, musically, I don't know.
Musically, maybe not.
You know, would the album sell? Maybe, I don't know. But I mean, back then it was an album. You bought it, you listened to every single song, told the story, job done.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, this goes down as another 90s feat of awesome guitar playing. I did Extreme Pornografita on an earlier one, and I'm not going to say this is a better album technically for guitar because it's totally different, but it's right up there with any album from the 90s. Certainly guitar-wise, I would say. I can't really think of many that can top this.
No.
Maybe apart from Awake by Dream Theater.
I don't know those guys. It's a road I haven't travelled yet. I'm quite scared to travel that direction just yet.
Yeah, I mentioned Dream Theater in every podcast to get it in there somewhere at some point. Apart from I even mentioned him in the Michael Jackson one I did last week.
Yeah.
And I didn't really.
Well, Joey Speed Demon, was it?
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's move on to the last track of the album, which is the eponymous track, Rust in Peace, ... Polaris.
Yeah, it's like the lyrics. It's like a story told from the point of view of a nuclear warhead that's just been launched. Kind of insane mindset to get into, but musically, it's fucking brilliant. The drum intro, as Ron said before, it sounds like a fat guy falling down the stairs.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
But it's brilliant. But the rest of the song changes as soon as that intro is finished. It goes straight into a shuffle, pretty much all the way through. After that, I mean, it goes to that Children of the Grave type shuffle, and it just sounds so heavy. It's incredible. It's like the perfect way to finish the album. Like Holy Wars is the perfect way to start it.
It's quite strange. I mean, I'm not a drummer, but he's on every track on this album. But this is the track when you really notice him. Obviously, it's because it's got the drum intro on it. But his drumming is stealth drumming. He's never mentioned in lists of top 10 drummers, is he? He's always overlooked.
Yeah.
I don't understand why, because he's an obvious choice to be in that list. I just don't get why he's overlooked, you know?
Yeah, his work stands for itself, on Countdown to Extinction as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he left after that album, but
I think he did 4 albums altogether, but spaced out over time.
Yeah.
Because he got fired and replaced. So I think these two, this one and Countdown, were his peak ones, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, there's live gigs of this lineup. I think it's from the Rust in Peace tour when he played Hammersmith. It's on YouTube. It's an amazing show, and he smashes it.
Yeah, I saw it actually. Yeah, back in, I think it. When did I see it? It might have been early '91. I think it was. I went to see that at the Birmingham Exhibition Centre. Jumped on a coach, got our tickets from Music Zone. Went down.
Old school.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
School, me. Went down to see the show. Let me see. It might have been. I don't know if it was '91 or '92. I think it was '91 because there was the tour,
'91, I think.
Clash of the Titans before it and after it. So his own Rust in Peace tour was in between those two, I think. And I think
sorry to interrupt there, Rob. The B-side on Hangar 18 is from Clash of the Titans, and it's from Wembley Arena, October 14th, 1990.
Yeah, so it might have been 91, early 91 then when I saw him. And the support act was a little known band called The Almighty, which I absolutely love those guys. And another little known band at the time called Alice in Chains.
Oh yeah.
I actually didn't even realise I'd seen them until maybe about 10 years ago, and I looked on setlist.com just for seeing all
I bet you was gutted, weren't you, when you look back and thought, fuck.
Yeah, because like it's talk about Alice in Chains, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, grunge. I preferred Nirvana and that kind of thing, Soundgarden, but they were also cool. But I didn't realise until years later I'd already seen them, and I thought they were great.
They were classed as grunge, weren't they? But they're a classic rock band, man. They sound like Sabbath.
Yeah,
I think Alice in Chains.
I like them.
Yeah.
Most of the grunge bands were most of the big ones anyway. They didn't really sound like one. Like Soundgarden are like a prog art rock fucking avant-garde band, really.
It's just an invented musical style that doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah, it's just a word. I mean, Nirvana were a punk band, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, especially on Bleach. Sounds like it was recorded in a chippy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I like it. I love
Yeah,
that.
I like it. It's got that feel on it. But
$600 that cost to make.
did
Over
it?
3 days, yeah.
But just going back to this album, I mean, obviously it's an amazingly classic album, but I think the drum sound is weak on this album. The actual, I don't think, say if you got a Brendan O'Brien or somebody like that to do the album, I know he wouldn't have done this kind of a metal album, but what he does is he gets that in the room, you're in the room, sound out the kit, he gets the sound and the drum kit first, and then builds the rest around it. And I just feel like the drum sounds on this album are quite weak until you get to Rust in Peace. I think maybe with a different producer that put the time in, they could have got better sounding drum kit on this.
Right.
I mean, what do you guys think?
I can tell you, as we were saying before about the 80s had their own sound on drums and noise gates and delays and all that kind of stuff. The 90s also had one too. So if you listen to anything from roughly around about 1990 to 94, 95, they had a similar sound as well. So if you listen to Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and all them, and also the smaller bands like I was talking earlier about, the Wild Hearts and all them, they all had the signature snare drum sound, and a lot of the big names hire their instruments in. So when you hear that killer drum sound, like you're like, whoa, that killer snare is brilliant or whatever, they've hired that in, and the industry have it. It's called the Black Beauty. I think it's a Pearl Black Beauty, and it costs like $350 an hour to hire it because it's so prestigious. It's like the pick of destiny, if you will, So when you hear things like Aerosmith from the 80s and all the big arena acts, they've got these big snare because the producers want to use it because they know how to work with it, to mic it up, which mics respond well to it. And it's just this particular one. It's not many Black Beauties over time that they've used. It's just this one particular one. That's the magic,
Yeah.
So that I think also lends itself to a certain sound of the times as well. You know what I mean? Because things are much more sought after. But yeah, definitely, I understand what you mean about, because it's got a similar, like a Lars Ulrich kind of sound off Justice, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's just a little bit weak, and it's.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah, it's just like, to me, on the album, just to kind of sum it up, it was always about the guitars and the drums were secondary. Whereas I think, how I would go about an album would be, I would spend hours first on the drum kit, get that sounding massive, and then work everything around it. And to me, this album, I love it. It's amazing, but it seems like they went the other way. On it. Kev, what do you think about the drum sound?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're talking about. I mean, there's a few bits where there's a snare roll and it sounds a little bit saggy.
Yeah.
It's like, but I mean, possibly. I mean, Mike Clink, he worked on Appetite for Destruction. The drums on that sound amazing. So
they do, yeah, they do.
So maybe I don't know. Mustaine thought, no, I'm not having that. Once they got to the mastering and mixing stage,
possibly. Yeah.
Press the old turn the drummer down pedal.
A little bit like they did on the bass sound on Justice.
Well, yeah.
Non-existent.
Yeah. I mean, I'm only speculating. I don't know if that's what actually happened.
You're probably bang on, Kev. Yeah,
possibly.
Very, very possible, because I mean, live the drum sound incredible when Nick Menzer's playing them.
Yeah.
I won't question that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the title track. The title actually came from from what I've read, Dave Mustaine was driving home from skydiving in California one day and saw a drum sticker saying, "May all your nuclear warheads rust in peace." And that gave him the inspiration for this track and pretty much the whole album as well, and the album title.
Oh, cool. I want to, I'm sure you can buy those bumper stickers. I want to find one on eBay.
I bet you can get them.
I bet you can get them.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you can.
Yeah, the little Megadeth logo in the corner.
Yeah, there's Mr. Trick.
A long time ago, wasn't it? It was written in 1983 as well.
Was it?
It was well before he joined. I don't know. Is it well before he joined Metallica or roughly around about that same time?
Yeah.
I think, maybe we was in Metallica the early days, perhaps. I don't know, but most certainly. I think it was called Child.
Oh yeah, Child Saint. Yeah, I read that. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, it was one of the songs that he's just had in his his head for a while, and I think he must never thought it was right to release, or maybe he didn't have it quite finished in his head or whatever.
Yeah.
But that just came out on this album, you know. So he had that for years.
I think on that note, so it's a good note to end it on. I want to be a little bit naughty now and just put something to a bit of a three-way vote. So I've got two Metallica fans here. I'm not a Metallica fan, so I'm going to vote Megadeth. Kev, do you vote Megadeth or do you vote Metallica?
What's the vote on?
On who's the best?
Who's the best?
Yeah. Thing is, Megadeth have done a couple of amazing albums, haven't they? Whereas probably from a Metallica point of view, they've done a lot more amazing albums from a fan's point of view. But just from an all-out, if you take Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction versus the best two Metallica albums, is it a Megadeth or a Metallica for you, Kev?
It's pretty close. I mean, my own personal tastes are more towards classic rock than prog. So I'll probably go Metallica.
Yeah, okay.
Not by much. I mean, it's like Rust in Peace versus Puppets. There's not a lot between them, I don't think.
Yeah, well, all right. So that's Megadeth 1, Metallica 1. So no pressure, Rob. You've got the casting vote on who's the best band. And this is official gospel fact. What we said here.
It is. This is apparently these are the rules that can never ever be undone. You know, once it's said, it cannot be unwritten.
You can never listen.
But I reckon, without even thinking about it, hands down, 100% Megadeth.
That'll do for me.
Hands down.
So Megadeth are better than Metallica. You've heard it here first and last.
It's true.
Full stop. Well, I'd like to thank you both for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Hopefully, Kev will get to play again, maybe next year. Who knows?
Fingers crossed.
But until then, good night and God bless. Cheers, Kev. Cheers, Rob.
Nice one.
Rest in peace, guys.
See you soon.
Rust in peace.